Hello and welcome to Carolina Classrooms. I'm Dawn Samples. Tonight is all about helping you, parents and students, get information about applying for and financing a college education. We'll present a lot of valuable information to you in the next hour, so you may want to press that record button now in case you want to go back and review something later. Joining me tonight are representatives from colleges and agencies around the state who know a few tricks of the college trade. We'll watch a presentation from each of them and follow up with a discussion. And we'll take your questions too. With us are Derrick, who is the Director of Student Financial Aid at the University of South Carolina.
Thank you, Dawn.
Welcome. Jennifer Williams, who is the Director of Student Financial Aid at Clemson University. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Karen Woodfaulk, the Director of Student Services for the South Carolina Commission on Higher Education.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you for being here. And Katie Harrelson, Deputy Director of the South Carolina Tuitions Grants Commission. Well, thank you for being here tonight,
Thank
Katie.
you, Dawn.
And last but not least, Regina Smith, Coordinator of the TRIO program at the University of South Carolina. Welcome, Regina.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us tonight. As I said, we're going to take your questions, and as we move forward in tonight's program, you may want to email your questions to us at carolinaclassrooms@scetv.org, or you can call us at 1-800-763-3881. So let's get started with some information from Derrick of USC.
There are basically four sources of financial aid that are available to students who are attending college. The first and probably the largest are the federal sources of aid. Those are primarily loans, also several grant programs for needy students. The next is state, and the state programs encompass many of the common South Carolina programs that you may have heard of, such as the Life Scholarship and Palmetto Fellows programs. There are a handful of state grant programs also based upon your need. The third source of aid comes from the institution itself, and those are often in the form of scholarships, many times based upon merit or perhaps a special talent, such as music or dance. And the fourth source are external programs, things that you may find in your community, such as scholarships from Kiwanis clubs, Rotary clubs, perhaps your church, programs through employers, a whole host of things and programs that can help you cover the cost of tuition outside of federal, state, and institutional sources. There are basically four types of financial aid. The first type is scholarships, and scholarships are what we call gift aid, which means they do not have to be repaid. The second source of aid is referred to as a grant. Grants are also gift aid, which means they do not have to be repaid. Grants are often based upon a student and family's financial situation. The third source are work programs. Many of those are considered student employment on and around a campus or university. And one of the more popular programs within that is the Federal Work-Study Program. The fourth source of aid is a loan program. Loans are by far the largest programs that are used to cover costs at institutions. They come from both federal sources and from private sources. Many folks are leery about borrowing, and the truth of the matter is in this day and age, oftentimes borrowing is a necessity rather than a luxury. One of the best things I think a family and a student can do as they prepare for college is to be creative about your financing. Try to think outside the box. Many times folks focus on trying to achieve the large, prestigious university scholarships, for which there are very few, when at the same time a student could put together a package of smaller scholarships from various external sources that would be equal to or greater than the institutional scholarship they may consider otherwise. We generally start making awards for students in April. We try to make awards on April the 1st. We make awards until we run out of money. So you want to make sure that you're one of the earliest filers, so file early. Make sure that you have all things in place and respond to any requests for additional information so that you can be considered for the best aid package available.
So, Joy, I have a question for you. You were just saying in your video that early filers, probably some of these are first come, first serve, and you begin awards on April 1st. What would be considered an early filer, and what timeline should students really be considering for doing that?
When we think about the timeline, let's look at the upcoming fall semesters. We look at the fall 2016 term. For folks that are starting school in the fall 2016, we look to receive FAFSAs prior to April the 1st. So actually the 2016-17 FAFSA is available right now. So we'd encourage folks to file it right now to make sure that we get it, review it, follow up with students with any questions we may have, any follow-up we need to make sure we have everything in place before April 1st so we can make that great award package for them.
And that would be primarily just for this year's seniors, for example,
That's
at
correct.
high school level.
Yes, Dawn,
so this wouldn't
correct.
be something juniors would go ahead and be doing.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We are going to move along now and take a look at a video from the upstate and hear from Jennifer Williams at Clemson.
The first step for anyone who is planning to apply for financial aid is to complete the free application for Federal Student Aid, or FAFSA. The FAFSA is a free application. Most schools use the FAFSA to make determinations for federal aid. Some use it for state aid, and then some schools use this to determine eligibility for institutional need-based grants. So it is important to fill this out. Most schools have a deadline, so it's important to check with the school that you're applying for to make sure that you're meeting the deadlines that they have for freshmen or returning students. Some of the grants that you apply for with the FAFSA are the Pell Grant or the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, and these do require the FAFSA, but that's the only application that you have to fill out for those grants. One of the largest types of scholarships is institutional scholarships. Each school has their own scholarships that they award to their students. These are funded by the university. Some have a separate application, but most use the admissions application. There can be some priority deadlines for application for admission, as well as if these scholarships do have a separate application, there could be a deadline. So I would encourage all students to check with the school that they're applying with. Most of these things will be posted prominently on their website. Another type of scholarship are external scholarships or third-party scholarships. These typically require applications to outside agencies. Some examples of this would be National Merit or ROTC or the Gates Millennium Scholarship. The student really has to do the legwork on these scholarships, so we encourage them to start early. And again, it's important to check the website of the school that you're attending. Most schools will provide you some information to guide you along the way. The state of South Carolina has a really great scholarship program for our residents. The only application for the state scholarship is for the Palmetto Fellows Scholarship. And in order to apply for this, you actually have to meet with your high school guidance counselor to fill out the application. There are 2 deadlines to apply for the Palmetto Fellows. One of those deadlines was in December, on December 15th, but there is a second deadline, and that's June the 15th. I would encourage all students who feel like they may qualify for the Palmetto Fellows to meet with their guidance counselor and fill out that application before that deadline. The school that you are applying to will get notification from CHE of your eligibility and will make that available to you on your award letter. Most students, after applying for scholarships, still find that they have to supplement their award package with student loans. The FAFSA, the free application for federal aid, is still the only application that we require for federal student loans. So as long as you filled out that application, then the school that you have applied to will notify you of the amount of your eligibility. Unfortunately, student loans don't always cover the balance, so some students and their parents find that they have to also apply for a parent loan. The parent loan is a little different. It does require a separate application because your parent is the one that's actually applying for this loan, and the parent is the one that will repay the loan once you have graduated. There are also private loans for students. Sometimes your parent can't or is not willing to apply for the parent loan, and in those cases there are private lenders that will loan money to students. Most of these require the student to have a co-signer, and that could be your parent or another family member, anyone who's willing to co-sign with you. These are a little different because they are private organizations that you're borrowing from. So when you go into repayment, you're paying this private loan company, not the federal government. In the state of South Carolina, the most popular of these types of loans comes from the South Carolina Student Loan Corporation. Most types of student loans allow students a grace period, usually that's 6 months after you graduate or you're no longer attending at least half-time. Once your grace period is over, then if you have a student loan through the federal government, then you would make your payments directly to the federal government. If you have a private loan, then you're making those payments to that private lender. So for students who do have both types of these loans, you will have separate monthly payments once you go into repayment. Most schools do offer a payment plan. Typically students do have to apply for these, so you will need to check with your school to see what's available. But typically your bill will be split up into a certain number of monthly payments, and then you would be responsible for making those payments during the semester. Every school does this a little bit differently, so I would encourage you to check with your school to see how you apply and then how your payments are determined. When you have questions, you should contact the school. The financial aid officers there are there because they like to help students. That is their passion. And so when you have a question, whether you're attending that school or not, they're going to provide the answers and try to guide you in the right way to make sure that you're successful. So I would say check the website and definitely contact us when you have questions, because we're there to help.
As you were just saying about how important it is for the students to contact your office, for example, would you advise even students who may be in their junior year to begin asking those questions and contacting schools they're interested in? Or is that something they should maybe wait?
No, absolutely. They should start early. Every year we have students that come in, they meet with us. A lot of times the visitor centers will actually schedule tours, and junior students will come in with their family, tour campus, meet with departments, talk about whatever major they're interested in, and then come to our office and sit down and we go through the process. One of the good things about meeting early is that you can find out what some of those requirements are. For example, a lot of institutional scholarships have either a base SAT score that you need in order to qualify, or a class rank, something like that. And when you start early, you have time to plan for that. And so if you're right under that cutoff for the SAT, if you start early enough, you can retake it to try to gain eligibility. So it's definitely important to start early.
Great. How early would you suggest? Would it even be earlier than the junior year, maybe?
I mean, we're always there to answer questions.
Okay.
So, I would encourage you to ask, but the junior year is typically when we see the most students come in that first time.
Okay, thank you. We are now going to take a look at some guidance counselors who play a key role in preparing students for college. They provide students and parents with great information about how to make college affordable. Let's take a quick look.
The guidance counselor at your high school is the key person to provide students and parents with current information to help you plan for college. Get to know the guidance professionals at your school and take advantage of their expertise. Financial aid is an equation that involves the college representative, the school guidance counselor, the parent, and of course, the student. Ultimately, the student should be responsible for exploring all scholarship opportunities. The guidance counselor is there to assist you and point you in the right direction. Do not assume you won't qualify for different types of financial aid. And likewise, do not rule out applying to a college because of cost. Each institution's website should feature a net price calculator. Use this to determine all possible costs in addition to tuition. Make sure you share these figures with your guidance counselor. Admission applications should be submitted early in the fall of your senior year. It's important to always meet all application deadlines. Be thorough and prompt with all your communications with colleges and agencies. Document everything and keep copies of all the forms you fill out. Most importantly, stay in contact with your chosen school and your guidance counselor. Together, you can determine the best way to make college affordable.
So this question is for any of you. What do you feel like is one of the most important things that a student can do or ask or engage in with a guidance counselor prior to getting to your office? What are some things that you really feel is important for them to come to you already knowing or having information about?
I think from our perspective at the University of South Carolina, it's always very helpful if a student has already met with their guidance counselor and has a basic understanding of what's required for admission to the university, what they may be eligible to receive in the state programs, where they are in terms of their high school GPA and class rank, and SAT scores and whether they need to do things differently or take a retake. I think like Jennifer mentioned earlier, it's always helpful when they come to us with a base understanding like that, because then we can build on that understanding and give them an idea of what to expect.
And I would add, the high school guidance counselor a lot of times will know about specific third-party scholarships that have applications that the student might need to complete, especially things that are local to that hometown or that region. So asking about that kind of thing is definitely a good idea.
And I really like the idea of them having some format, a notebook or something to keep all of that information in. I think that it's a really good idea to keep it together and to be able to go back and have historical information. Anyone else have any comments? Or
I would just say this actually hits very close to home for me because I have a senior in high school this year. And so even though I've been in the business, as we say, for about 18 years, I still needed a little bit of help from her guidance counselor. You know, there are things that they have access to that I wouldn't have known even as a professional in higher education. So open communication with those guidance counselors is very important. We have great guidance counselors in my school district, so we're very fortunate, but they've offered to write letters of recommendation for scholarships on her behalf because they know her school record and activities, and they have very easy access to that information. So it's been great. And I will say one other thing about the guidance counselors throughout the state of South Carolina is that they're very dedicated to keeping up with all the changes that happen in financial aid. There are annual workshops and conferences that they attend in great numbers to make sure that they're giving their students the correct information.
that's great. And they have that personal connection with the students too, because they see them all the time, so they can maybe help direct them where they think they have strengths. Or so that's good. Thank you. Let's hear from Dr. Karen Woodfaulk from the Commission on Higher Education now.
South Carolina residents are very fortunate to have a variety of financial aid opportunities for them in this state. We are very thankful to the General Assembly for making these financial aid opportunities available and in turn allowing for several of our citizens to take advantage of higher education opportunities. They have to be a South Carolina resident in order to take advantage of these programs. Also, a student has to be a degree-seeking student in order to be eligible. Also, if a student owes a refund on a federal student aid program, then they would have to check to see whether or not they would be eligible for these state scholarship programs. Please make sure that a student, South Carolina resident, is eligible before pursuing these opportunities. The very first program we're going to talk about is the Palmetto Fellows Scholarship Program. This is an opportunity for students who are academically performing at the top level to receive financial aid to go to college in the state. The application process for a student who is going to pursue the Palmetto Fellows Scholarship opportunity is number one, to consult with their high school guidance counselor to see if they, of course, meet the eligibility requirements. The student must enroll in an eligible South Carolina institution immediately upon high school graduation, and also they must attend a 4-year institution here in the state. If they do receive the Palmetto Fellows Scholarship, they may receive up to $6,700 in their first year, and that will increase in their sophomore, junior, and senior year to $7,500 for a period of 8 consecutive semesters or 4 years. The student must earn a 1200 on the SAT or a 27 on the ACT. The student must also rank in the top 6% of their sophomore, junior, or senior year. Then finally, a student must have a 3.5 high school GPA based on the uniform grading scale. As an alternative criteria, a student can earn a 1400 on the SAT or a 32 on the ACT and earn a 4.0 GPA based on the uniform grading scale in order to meet the criteria. For the Life Scholarship Program, there is no application process. The award is a maximum $5,000 annually, which means $2,500 per term. The student must be a South Carolina resident at the time of high school graduation and at the time of college enrollment. Once they enroll in college, they must continually be enrolled in order to receive the Life Scholarship. At a two-year institution, a student must have a 3.0 GPA based on the South Carolina Uniform Grading Scale. If awarded at a two-year institution, a student has up to four terms of eligibility at a two-year institution. To be eligible at a four-year institution, a student must meet two of the following criteria. The student must have a 3.0 GPA based on the Uniform Grading Scale. Also, a student must score an 1100 on the SAT or a 24 on the ACT. And then also, another criteria, rank in the top 30% of the graduating high school class. Again, 2 out of the 3 criteria. There is an opportunity for students who are majoring in science or math or any of the technology fields or engineering may be eligible for a Palmetto Fellows or a Life Scholarship enhancement. First of all, the student must be enrolled at an eligible four-year institution, and starting in the second year of their award, again, that would mean the sophomore year, the student could receive this math or science enhancement. The student must earn in the freshman year at least 14 credit hours in math or science in order to be eligible for the science or math enhancement in the sophomore, junior, and senior year. Another scholarship opportunity is the South Carolina Hope Scholarship. This particular scholarship allows for a student who is a freshman to receive additional financial aid. It's for four-year South Carolina institutions only. There is no application process. A student must earn a 3.0 GPA based on the South Carolina Uniform Grading Scale. And this particular scholarship allows for eligibility for 2 terms. The maximum award is $2,800. There's another opportunity for students to earn financial aid in this state, and that is the Lottery Tuition Assistance Program. The Lottery Tuition Assistance Program is awarded only at the 2-year technical colleges or the 2-year USC regional campuses and Spartanburg Methodist College. The student must complete the free application for federal student aid, we call that the FAFSA, each academic year, and eligibility for lottery tuition assistance is determined by the institution. An eligible full-time student may receive up to $1,140 per term. If the student is part-time, they may receive $95 per credit hour to be used towards the cost of tuition. Another opportunity for students to take advantage of the financial aid programs in the state is the South Carolina Need-Based Grant Program. This program is available at the 2- and 4-year public institutions around the state. Based on need, the student may receive up to $2,500. Please note that that amount may vary per college or institution. Many of those particular programs are based on limited funds, so it might be where it is a first-come, first-served basis for many of the students. So check early, check deadlines, and make sure that you can find out about all the information so that you can apply as soon as possible.
So, Karen, there are a lot of opportunities out there for kids in South Carolina to get money. So tell me, I know one thing that was mentioned in the other 2 videos was about how sometimes what they receive in aid or in scholarship may not cover everything and they apply for a loan. Can you have more than one scholarship at a time?
For the state scholarships, we allow for students to receive the South Carolina Need-Based Grant along with other state merit-based scholarships, such as the Palmetto Fellows or the Life Scholarship or the Hope Scholarship. So if a student would like to use the need-based grant, they have that opportunity. For other programs, such as the federal programs, the Pell Grant, for example, that also can be used, and other federal grant programs along with institutional programs as well. They can also be used with the state scholarships.
Okay.
We heard Joey talk earlier about packaging your scholarships and your grants aids. And that's very important to do that because, again, students can have the opportunity to use multiple scholarships in order to meet their financial need at the institution.
That's good to know. So they don't need to give up if what they get is not enough to cover everything.
Absolutely.
There are ways to piece it together.
Absolutely, that is correct.
Good, that's good. Now Katie Harrison from the South Carolina Tuition Grants Commission will share some information with us.
The state of South Carolina offers a South Carolina Tuition Grant Program, which was enacted in 1970 by the General Assembly to assist South Carolina residents to pay the tuition at one of 21 eligible private colleges throughout the state. This year, the Tuition Grants Commission has assisted over 13,000 South Carolina residents who have received about $38 million in state assistance. The tuition grant is a need-based grant program, meaning that the student has to demonstrate financial need as a result of the free application for federal student aid. There is no separate application for the tuition grant. It is all determined electronically by the FAFSA results. Once the FAFSA is completed, if all residency questions have been completed accurately, and if the student lists one of the eligible 21 colleges, then that student will automatically be considered for the tuition grant. In order to qualify for the tuition grant, a student must be participating in an eligible undergraduate program at one of our participating institutions. They must also be enrolled full-time at one of those colleges in order to receive the grant. By statute, there are also academic qualifications in place as well. In order to receive the grant for the first time, an entering freshman student must meet one of 4 academic qualifications. They must either have a 2.0 on the South Carolina Uniform Grading Policy at high school graduation, or be in the top 75% of their graduating class, or have an ACT score of 19 composite, or an SAT score of 900, and that's the critical reading and math only. In order to continue receiving the tuition grant once they have enrolled in college, the student must earn at least 24 semester hours per academic year and must also be maintaining satisfactory academic progress at their individual institution. The FAFSA does have to be applied for each year. June 30th is the application deadline for the tuition grants program. Apply for the FAFSA early. As soon as you can, when financial information is available, the FAFSA should be completed as soon as possible during the application process. The Tuition Grants Commission has a brand new website this year, www.sctuitiongrants.org. On that website, they can find eligibility requirements, residency information, and a list of all the participating colleges, and their financial aid office information is available on the website as well. Funding for the South Carolina Tuition Grant and the other state programs that have been discussed tonight are made possible by generous support through the South Carolina General Assembly, and we would like to give the legislature credit for continuing to realize the importance of higher education in our state and for continuing to fund these important student aid programs.
So Katie, that certainly is important, having that legislative support.
Yes.
So given that the funding is by the state, is it possible for someone who wants to qualify or apply for a tuition grant, can they go to a private school, or is it only for students who want to go to a public school?
So the tuition grant program is actually specifically for students who are attending a private school. The Commission on Higher Education administers the South Carolina Need-Based Grant Program, which is a similar program, but that is for the public institutions, whereas the Tuition Grants Program is for the higher education private institutions throughout the state.
So it's specific for
residents attending private colleges. It's also a need-based grant based on the FAFSA. We just have 2 different sort of programs for the public colleges and one for the private colleges.
And are adults eligible for this also?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, 14 of the 21 independent private colleges in the state offer non-traditional and evening programs specifically geared toward adult learners, those who want to come back and complete their degree, or maybe who want to, start when they're 40 years old and just never got a college degree in the first place. So there are certain programs that do allow qualification for the tuition grant through those non-traditional programs. About 8% of our recipients are adult learners at this time.
Good. That's good to know. Thank you. Yes. Our last presentation comes from Regina Smith from the TRIO program at USC.
TRIO programs are available throughout the United States. We provide services to students and families, and they are college access programs available to help students to prepare for, get ready for, and be successful in college. Our focus is working with first-generation, low-income students to provide college access, but we do have programs that start as early as middle school. We work with students to, first and foremost, let them know that college is an option, because a lot of times students and families think that college may not be available for them. They just don't know the right questions to ask or the right people to talk to. We're there to guide them from start to finish, and we are not there just to get them to the door to college. We're there to make sure that they actually graduate from college. At the University of South Carolina, we have 5 TRIO programs. We have Upward Bound, which is a program that most people are more familiar with. We have Educational Talent Search, which is a program that works with the students as early as middle school. And we have the Opportunity Scholars program that works with students who are currently in college. We have the Ronald McNair program that works with students who are currently in school, but they are wanting to pursue a higher education, graduate school. We have the Educational Opportunity Center that works with adult students. College Goals South Carolina is an initiative to help students around the state to complete their FAFSA form, the free application for federal student aid. At this workshop, students and parents can come, get their financial aid forms completed, and start that entire process from start to end, get help that they need, and it's totally free of charge. It will be happening across the state in various high schools and college campuses. My advice to students applying for financial aid is to start as soon as possible when the process begins. And it really starts with completing the free application for federal student aid after January 1st of the student's senior year. That is really the process to start all kinds of doors opening for the entire process. Need-based aid and other types of aid, they all will start with using the FAFSA form. A student who's interested in participating in TRIO programs, they first need to contact their guidance counselor in their schools, and if you're in middle school, they can go to the middle school guidance counselor, or high school, the same thing. The guidance counselors are there as the first line of information, because all of the different programs that they have on their campus, they will know about. And if there is a TRIO program that is available at their middle or high school, certainly contact your guidance counselor. We work very, very closely with guidance staff to provide all the services that we give to the students and parents.
So that's really exciting, Regina, that kids as young as middle school age can start to really become a part of the process and kind of make it a reality for themselves. Have you had good response from students in the area?
Absolutely. TRIO programs are college access programs, and we primarily focus on low-income, first-generation students, those students that don't have a history of going to college. So we're there to help them to know that college is a possibility, and we have strong partnerships with financial aid offices around the state to just gear them and answer their questions and help them through it.
We have some time now for you guys to be able to answer some questions. So we have a few questions from some of our viewers, and you all, if you have an answer for the question, you can take turns answering, or you can reply to each other. But we're also going to be taking questions, so if you have questions you want to email in or call in, please feel free to do so. So one of the questions we've received tonight Is South Carolina one of the states that awards financial aid based on the FAFSA on a first-come, first-served basis?
I'll take that.
Okay.
We've talked a lot already tonight about the FAFSA and deadlines. Every school has deadlines. Some are similar and some are different. Some schools use March 1st, some use April 1st. But individual programs can actually be first come, first serve. Like Karen mentioned, the South Carolina Need-Based Grant, that is a program that's funded by the state legislature, and money can run out. So if you apply late, you do run the risk of missing out on that. We definitely encourage students to apply early, whether you're a freshman or a returning student. The FAFSA, you can use things like the IRS data retrieval tool, which will pull your information directly in from the IRS, so it makes the application process much easier. But you do have to have your taxes filed in order to do that. So a lot of it is based on when your parents file their taxes as well. If they can't file their taxes yet, if there's something that's prohibiting that, they can use estimated information. So you don't have to wait until your taxes are filed if that's going to make you miss one of those deadlines.
Okay. Okay, I know. I think each and every one of you have mentioned and underline the importance of filing early. So I hope our viewers out there have heard that it is time to be doing that right now.
Yes.
Another question that I know we had talked about a little bit is that there are some changes coming down the road that some of our viewers may need to be aware of. What are some things that may be changing soon?
I can start with that, and I
Okay.
think others will probably want to join in. Looking forward to the 2017-18 academic year, there'll be some changes coming to the FAFSA process. Changes to basically the fundamental timing in which we've all become accustomed to the FAFSA cycle. Historically, the FAFSA comes online January 1st of each year. So, for example, for folks considering aid for 2016-17, the FAFSA is ready now. It came out on January 1st. For those looking for aid for 17-18, that FAFSA will be available October 1st of this year. That's a significant change from what it has been in the past. It's really a wonderful situation because it gives folks a lot more time to get that FAFSA in, meet those deadlines that we've been talking about, and get the best aid package available. They'll also be allowed to use tax information from 2 years ago. Right now, the FAFSA requires the previous year's tax information. And like Jennifer was saying, that can be a little stressful on folks who are trying to file now that haven't done their tax returns, are considering an extension, a whole host of things. So beginning with the 2017-18 year, it will look backwards 2 years. So in that case, most folks should have their information available and should be able to file earlier with accurate information, and schools can move on those more quickly.
And I guess they'd almost have to make it 2 years back since it's before the tax season.
That's right.
But will the same be true for a lot of the funds, that if they don't apply early, it's still the funds could run out even though the date's been moved up considerably?
Yeah, that's still
So we really need to get the word out to people that if they're used to that January 1st cycle and they come in January 1st, some of it could be gone. Okay, right. Okay, just checking to make sure. So another question from one of our viewers is, if a student loses their life scholarship, can it be regained?
Yes, it can, Dawn. A student, of course, has to meet the eligibility requirements, which include earning 30 credit hours, typically in an academic year. An academic year, by the way, is fall, spring, and summer. And also a student has to earn a 3.0 GPA. A student has to make sure, of course, they meet the requirements, which would include a variety of other areas, but those are the basic ones. If a student loses their scholarship because each year they do not meet the eligibility requirements, and again, it accumulates 30 credit hours in the freshman year, 60 in the sophomore, 90 in the junior. They don't quite meet those particular benchmarks and they lose a scholarship, the student could then go on to earn the scholarship again by bringing up their GPA to a 3.0 GPA and also making sure again they meet the next benchmark, which would be again the 60 or the 90. So there are great opportunities for students to re-earn their scholarship. And let's make sure they note that they also have, a student has through the summer to earn their life scholarship eligibility for the next year.
So if things aren't going quite so well in maybe in the fall or in the spring, summer is a great opportunity for students to go back to school and bring up their GPA in order to get the Life Scholarship or earn credit hours as well.
So that's really good, because if students have encountered some rough spots in life, or for whatever reason they're struggling and they want to get back on their feet, all hope's not lost. They can get back.
That is
Another question. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, along with that, one question that we get a lot, once a student loses their scholarship, we get a lot of questions about whether they can regain it mid-year. And you have to gain your eligibility at the beginning of the fall semester. So if you do lose it, you have to wait an entire year before you can regain your eligibility.
Okay, that is an important point. Yes, thank you. This one is a question about the Life Scholarship. And this viewer wants to know if the Life Scholarship can transfer from one school to another.
Yes, a Life Scholarship can transfer from one South Carolina eligible institution to another South Carolina eligible institution. So a student, if they would like, they could go to, for example, a 2-year institution and transfer to a 4-year institution, or from a 4-year institution to another 4-year institution in the state in order to continue with their Life Scholarship. So the answer is yes. We have that quite often in our state, where students transfer from one institution to the other, and they move seamlessly from one institution to the other with their scholarship.
So one thing I noticed that you said was it has to be a Life Scholarship eligible institution. So that's something they would need to verify before they get too far down the road.
That is correct. They have to make sure that that particular South Carolina institution, and typically the public institutions, and also, of course, the independent institutions in the state, are the eligible institutions in which a student could transfer their scholarship. But it's always good to check to make sure.
Just to be sure. Okay, what about if a student has a job? Does that income impact how the parents need to fill out the FAFSA?
I can take that one. If the student has a job, let's say it's like a summer job that they've taken, they do need to report that on the FAFSA. It's real specific about what you have to report and how you have to report it. But there is an important caveat to that. If it's a summer job that the student's not going to have while they're in school, that family should contact the financial aid office at their school, because the financial aid office can make adjustments to their FAFSA to reflect the family's situation going forward rather than what it was previous.
Okay. Is anyone else going to comment on that? Okay. Another question is, we were talking just a minute ago about how they might possibly lose their scholarship. What about if a student finds themselves in a situation where their parents are deceased, or they're not receiving any support or financial aid from their parents? What can they do?
I can take that one. So the FAFSA does ask questions to determine a student's dependency status. And so if both of their parents are deceased, in a lot of cases the school will ask for some documentation to verify their situation and in order to be able to make an award. However, if you do have a living parent, then you are required to use that parent's information on the FAFSA if you are determined to be a dependent student. Unfortunately, just because your parents are not willing to provide, if you're still a dependent student, you still have to report their information, and we have to take that into consideration. However, like Joey mentioned just a second ago, the financial aid office is able to make determinations based on your situation. So there are cases where maybe your parents lost a job, or something in your situation has changed. That isn't always relevant to us on the FAFSA when you initially file. So it's important to be in contact with your financial aid office, because you never know, there may be information they need for you to make those changes to determine what you're eligible for.
So they shouldn't just take everything at face value. They really need to reach out to you and talk with you about their situation.
Absolutely. If there's anything that they feel like is extraordinary about their situation, and really anytime they have questions, like you said, we've talked already about the financial aid offices are there to help. So anytime they have a question, it's better to ask the question rather than not.
Thank you. We have a question from a viewer who would like to know if the financial aid opportunities you've mentioned are eligible for senior adults who are 65 or older, or are there any special financial aid opportunities for senior adults?
I can start with that particular. There is an act that was approved by the General Assembly which will allow for participating institutions, so again it's important to check, to allow for our South Carolina seniors and those persons who have to be age 60 or older to actually take coursework at a public college or university. They would of course have to check with the university to make sure that again they are participating in the program. But a lot of our I don't like to say senior citizens, our older South Carolina residents have taken advantage of this particular program. So if they would like to take a course, it's for free. Again, they might have to pay for books and other things, but they could take advantage of this. So please make sure that contact your institution to see whether or not they participate in the program.
That's great, because you should never stop learning.
Yes, that is
That's awesome. So we have another question from a viewer who is interested. They have a son in high school who is taking college courses. Are they eligible for any financial aid?
They are. Again, through the support of the General Assembly, we have a program called Lottery Tuition Assistance. This particular program is only at the 2-year technical colleges and also at the USC regional campuses, and of course, as we mentioned before, Spartanburg Methodist College as well. Students who are still in high school who would like to take dual enrollment courses. That means, of course, that students are enrolling while they're in high school, also enrolling in college as well, could be eligible for lottery tuition assistance at that particular college. So again, it's very important that the student contact the college and their guidance counselor, because many guidance counselors know about this particular program, to ensure that if, again, the student meets the requirements, they have to take a certain number of credit hours and so forth, that perhaps they could use lottery tuition assistance to help them during their high school years.
That's great. That's awesome.
Could I add on to that, Dawn, just real quickly? I think dual enrollment opportunities are abundant in South Carolina, and they're great if it's a good fit for your high school student. It's very important for them to realize, though, that the grades that they earn in those courses may be counted later on toward their scholarship eligibility. So you're taking a college course, and that's going to count as a college credit. So just be careful and do very well, and just realize that that may impact you later also.
So they don't have the option to just not use that credit if they didn't want to.
That's right.
So they need to be very serious about the course.
It's an
they
official
take.
transcript grade.
That's a very good point. Thank you. What about students who may have disabilities? What types of financial aid may be available for those students?
I'll talk about one program.
Okay.
There is a wonderful, exciting program where some of our colleges have to participate. It's called the College Transition Program. This particular program really identifies students who are called intellectually disabled. They are able to take advantage of the college experience, and of course the students do earn some certification. They interact in many programs with college students, and in order to be eligible for the program, they do have to complete the FAFSA. The families have to complete the FAFSA. And if they would like to have further information about the participating institutions, they can contact the Commission on Higher Education, or they could also go on our website. That would be che.gov, and we'll be glad to provide additional information about those programs around the state.
That's great.
And it's a really exciting program.
That is. That's awesome.
Dawn, I would also add that the Life Scholarship has a couple of allowances for folks with similar learning disabilities, where they can take a reduced course load and still meet the requirements to maintain that award. Karen mentioned earlier that there's a certain number of hours a student has to earn each year to maintain it. There are allowances for students with a documented learning disability to receive that award going forward with less than a full-time load.
So those are things they need to consider as
That's
they
right.
apply, having the documentation and
That's
the
right.
historical information about that.
And it's important for that student to self-identify early, because we need to know
Okay.
that.
Right.
So
Okay.
typically the school will have a disability office that they would identify to,
Mhm.
and they will make those accommodations for them.
Thank you. This is a question for Regina. Is the TRIO the same as the Gamecock Guarantee at USC?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
TRIO programs is if a student is attending the University of South Carolina, that is under the umbrella of TRIO programs with our Opportunity Scholars program.
Okay. And there was another question, I have to see if I can find it a second ago. It had to do with the middle school programs that I think were shown up on the screen a few minutes ago. Like the, I can't find it on here. It was things that they could do at middle school, some of the programs they can participate in at middle school. Can you explain a little bit about that? It's not; these are not programs where they would get any kind of college credit at middle
Correct.
school.
In relation to TRIO programs starting in middle school, these are services that are provided by counselors that go out into the middle schools and have sessions with the students.
Okay.
And these are sessions like they'll start talking about admissions, financial aid on a middle school level, because each grade has grade-specific services that we give the students. And each year they're in the program, they go on college tours so they can experience it for themselves and just see themselves on a campus and let them know that, yeah, this is a possibility for me. Even if my parents didn't go to college, I can see myself in college. So we want to plant that seed early and let them know all the opportunities that are available to them. And we have all these wonderful people here that help them to guide through that process too.
So it's just helping them really develop an awareness then.
Correct.
Is what the program is about.
Yes.
Okay. Let me see. If parents share custody of a child, how does that impact how they apply for financial aid?
It can get complicated, but the simple answer is when you complete the FAFSA, it's going to ask you to indicate which parent provides more support. Sometimes that can be tough with shared custody, so the next step is which one does the student spend more of their time with? Which one do they live more with? And sometimes that can be very difficult to determine, but the bottom line is a family just kind of has to sit down and think about which one the student may be getting a slightly bit more support from, and then use that family's information on their FAFSA.
And do they have to have legal documentation of that, or is that just an estimate that they make?
That's an estimate that they make. Only if the school is required to collect additional documentation would they have to verify that. But in the case of filing the FAFSA up front, it's simply their best estimate.
I have a question from a current student who is currently in school who wants to know if they can apply for financial aid or the Life Scholarship. It sounds as though maybe they didn't have it to begin with. Can they earn it if they've never had it?
I can start with the Life Scholarship. Yes, a student may not have met the eligibility requirements when they graduated from high school, but while in college, again, I mentioned the 30 credit hours and the 3.0 GPA. If a student earns, after the first year, 30 credit hours and a 3.0 GPA, they could earn the Life Scholarship moving forward. So a student can earn the scholarship while in college, which is very encouraging for students, maybe slow starters. But
it's
when
a big adjustment.
when they like to gain that scholarship and they have the incentive, we strongly encourage students not to be discouraged, but to continue on and to see if they can earn it moving forward.
And the FAFSA, we encourage everyone to fill it out every year, but you don't have to. If you're not applying for loans or you don't think you would qualify for need-based aid, you don't technically have to fill it out. So you may have covered your first year through outside scholarships or with the state scholarships, and then your second or third year you may decide, you know what, we need to apply for a loan this year. So you are able to make that decision going forward. Although, like I said, I still encourage, it is a free application, so we definitely encourage everybody to fill it out, even if you don't think you would qualify, because you just never know until you fill it out.
Right. Sometimes life throws us curveballs, and you may have to step back and reevaluate your resources.
That's right.
Right. Well, I'd like to thank each of you for your time tonight and for answering our questions. And just being here with us here at ETV tonight. We have had so much great information this hour, and it has flown by, but thank you for your insight, and thank you for your questions. I'd like to invite you to join us again on February 24th at 7 p.m. We will have a panel of state and district officials to help you sort out some of the confusion about the assessment in K-12. If you have questions you'd like to ask, we'll take those ahead of time. So please send them to carolinaclassrooms@scetv.org. We would also like to see and share the unique things that teachers are doing in your classrooms. So we'd like to invite you to submit a short video, 2 minutes or less, showcasing your students so that we can possibly use those on our future Carolina Classrooms episodes. Please visit our website at southcarolinaetv.org/education to find out the rules and how to submit your video. There you can also find links to other resources that can help you with applying and paying for college. We hope today's show is informative and helpful for everyone at ETV. I'm Dawn Samples. Thank you for watching. Good night.